Hi, you are in the ladies' room with Dr. Donica, the only public ladies' room you can enter anytime without ever waiting online. I'm your host, Dr. Donica Moore. We'll be having real conversations with real women about really intimate issues. They may be embarrassing, sad, or funny, but they will always be interesting and informative. You know, like the best conversations you've had in ladies' rooms with your best friends, or total strangers and a physician. Please join us. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Now, of course, we are in the midst of a worldwide novel coronavirus pandemic, and with it has come unprecedented anxiety, stress, financial insecurity, fears, realized and not, about homelessness and hunger. Most people are following the prescribed exhortations to stay home and save lives by sheltering in place, either alone or with their immediate family members only. This creates a lot of togetherness time, which can put extra strain on even the healthiest relationships, and can often be the last straw in relationships which might not have been very strong or positive before the crisis. So today I'm talking with expert couples counselor and psychologist, Dr. Sarah Rattray. A native New Yorker and my 7th through 9th grade classmate, she relocated to the West Coast in the 1980s, where she got her PhD in clinical psychology from the California School of Professional Psychology and has been a practicing clinical psychologist for more than 3 decades. She's also launching into new ventures with online offerings, which we're going to hear all about. She's also a certified Gottman therapist, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, or FDNP, and a certified metabolic typing advisor, or CMTA. Don't worry if you don't know what those things are. I don't either, so I'm going to ask her. But mostly I'm going to ask her about communication strategies to help couples and families not only survive, but thrive through the quarantine life and beyond. Dr. Rattray, welcome to the Ladies' Room. And I'm sorry if I've butchered your last name. When your name is Donica, you're very sensitive about how other people pronounce their name.
Well, thank you, Donica. Yeah, it's Rattray, but you can call me Sarah, as you have for many years.
Great. Well, welcome. So tell us just, how are you doing as a person and as an individual first with this coronavirus quarantine, stay-at-home, sequestration situation? You're in the state of Washington, of course, which was one of the first hit.
Yes. So I am in King County, which is where Seattle is, just north of Snohomish County, which had that very first case in the whole country. So I am tremendously grateful, although I didn't know it at the time, that our governor really jumped on things. Jay Inslee closed schools, contracted gatherings really early, and that whole flattening the curve phrase, we have had tremendous success here. And I mean, I am just really right in the epicenter of that beginning, but we flattened that curve so much that although our frontline healthcare people have been tremendously stressed out, it's really been going pretty well here. But for me, Donica, I have been on a roller coaster. Some days I'm great and filled with gratitude for the fortunate things I have in my life. And then other times I'm like, this is a new reality and I don't know what's coming. So when I get a little bit overwhelmed with question marks about the future, I just say, well, the future's the future. I'm doing what I can today. So it's just this roller coaster. On balance, though, I'm doing really well. Thank you for asking. And I know you're sheltering, well, you're staying at home.
I'm staying at home.
Yes.
So who are you staying at home with? Are you on your own, or do you have your children back with you in the house?
My children are grown and gone, and they're all staying at home in their different places. And, I have a lot more phone calls and Zoom calls with them than I ever had before. So that's an upside, but it's strange that they're not here.
See, my children are grown and flown back.
Flown back.
So
yes.
They flown back just for the coronavirus situation. They lived in New York City. And of course, did not feel like that was a great, healthy place to stay because they have such little space. And so being in the suburbs of New Jersey seemed like a great idea till last week, when we are now the most heavily hit state, particularly Morris County, where I live. So that was an unexpected turn. So we all have our different perspectives based on where we're coming from. But I think regardless of who we're sheltering with, we all have very strong needs to reach out to those who we love and those who we care about. And of course, I do want to acknowledge for the more than 47,000 people who have already lost family members. This is an unspeakable tragedy. So there are many, many of our listeners who are also dealing with horrific grief. More than if they had lost those family members during a quote unquote normal time, because they can't even have funerals and they can't even mourn. So I'm not even really sure where to begin this conversation, other than at the beginning, which is, of course, always a great place to begin. And I love what you said on your website about what inspired you to become a psychologist, or one of the things that really piqued your interest was this concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs and the concept of self-actualization. So why don't we start there and tell us what self-actualization is?
Well, my interpretation of self-actualization is being the best person that you can be. And so that's what I have personally been striving for my entire life. And that's what I imagined that I would help clients with when I found psychology, when I fell in love with psychology. I thought it would be just an exploration of helping people become their very best selves. And I have morphed that in my career as a couples psychologist into helping couples have the very best relationship that they personally can have, given their individual selves, their individual relationships. So that really, I would say, is one way to sum up my overarching mission: is how do we become our best selves within our best relationships?
Yeah. So is there a term like self-actualization for a couple becoming their best couplehood or their best duality?
I have been brainstorming on that for a while, Donica, and I'm not there yet, but
Okay, so we're going to have a contest where we're going to ask everybody to send us their best ideas for what is the equivalent term for self-actualization for being your best couplehood.
I love that. Yeah, I tossed around couple actualization, but Maslow has a many-decade head start on that broad acceptance and understanding of self-actualization. So yeah, I love it. Who can come up with the couple actualization phrase?
Couple actualization. Yeah, no, it's too bulky. It's too bulky. All right. So tell us, in terms of couples right now, or people who are listening who are in a couple, and I don't want to lose people who are not in a couple, because I think all of these techniques are very important for communicating with whoever you're going to be sheltering with, and whoever you're living with or staying with or involved with or connected to. And I think one of the things we all really, really appreciate during this time is the power and importance of connection. I also don't want to lose people who are no longer in a couple, but who were in a couple, because I've been there, you've been there. It may seem in the time that you'll never be in a coupled situation again, or you may never be in another relationship, and that may be your choice. But there's certainly always strategies that you can learn and techniques you can learn to improve your relationships, whether it's with a romantic partner, a domestic partner, your adult children who've grown and flown, or
your roommates,
or even your mother. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Actually, speaking of hi, Mom, I just had a flashback. I just remembered that your mother and my mother went to high school together.
Get out.
And I just remembered, oh gosh, talk about having a flashback memory from 7th grade. I just remember how we learned that because and I were in a classroom play and the parents were invited and our mothers came and they freaked out because of course they had lost touch after high school and then they reconnected.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. Well, I will have to jump on the phone and reacquaint my mother with this fact, and that will give her something to talk about. She'll be very happy.
And I won't have to do that because my mother is an avid listener of this program. But also this, like, how awesome a therapist are you? You already got a suppressed memory out of me.
That's funny.
Anyway, so I interrupted you and me. So start at the beginning. What are kind of the foundations and hallmarks that couples need to develop for good communication skills, ideally before a coronavirus crisis?
Right. Well, we can talk before, but really very, very important right now, and broadly important. But when you want to communicate with anybody, you want both people to feel safe. You want both people to feel relaxed. So I want to give a little big picture look at why that is. So if either one of us are feeling threatened or unsafe or uncertain or wary or any kind of a hint of danger, we start heading into that fight or flight state. And I know everyone can imagine physical fight or flight. So for example, if I'm a cave woman and a saber-toothed tiger jumps in front of my cave, I'm going to go, and then I'm going to reach for the nearest weapon to throw at it or to hit it with. That's fight. Or I'm going to run away as quickly as I can. That's flight. Or I'm going to freeze and pretend I'm not existing, depends on the animal. And that's freeze. But what happens, this is so very fundamentally important, in terms of communication, a fight style of communication is instead of a weapon, oh, you can't see, there we go, instead of a weapon, glass jar.
And most people are listening to this, so they can't see what you're doing.
That's true. They couldn't see me reaching for my mason jar.
I think they got the image, though, from the vocal inflection.
Right. So fight, when your body's in fight or flight, in communication, it's the word choices, not only the word choices, but word choices of name calling or just arguing, saying no, refusing to concede a point, not being able to listen. But even more than that, you lose the ability for creative problem solving, you lose any sense of humor, and you absolutely lose empathy and compassion. So just imagine for a moment, if I was confronted with a saber-toothed tiger, if I had empathy and compassion and I said, oh, you look so hungry, Donica, I would be dead in a flash. My brain does not allow me this relaxed pause to be compassionate about someone because I've just lost that fighting edge and I'm going to be dead. And the thing about fight or flight is it's out of our voluntary control. It's an automatic switch. So if I am on alert when I'm talking to somebody, automatically I won't be able to access empathy and compassion, creative problem solving, sense of humor, open and curious, interested listening. So a fundamental, and that's just the fight part. The flight part is often not wanting to talk. Like, you know what, I'm out of here. I can't do this, or just avoiding altogether. The freeze part is standing there next to the person you're talking to, but just kind of shutting down and being very blank. So a bottom line fundamental principle for everyone, and especially now, is can you be a leader with your, let's just call them communication partners, and can you always do your very best to establish safe and calm environments for talking. So that's what I want to dive into a little bit further, is now that I've given you a little glimpse into the evolution of our biology as it applies to communication, I want to dive a little further into establishing safe and calm setups for communication.
Okay. So go for it. Dive.
Okay, so I'm going to take a second to highlight this moment in time that we're in, and then I'll just talk again more broadly. But Donica, we are not in control. You know, in life we're not ever in control, but right now we are absolutely not in control. Who could have predicted that your adult children would leave New York City, you know, for New Jersey? Like nobody could predict that. And we're out of control, and everything is unpredictable. We are surprised and startled with every new news story that we hear. And so our baseline, let's call it our physiological arousal baseline, rather than being somewhat more calm and relaxed and chill like it may have been in the past if we were lucky, it's quite a bit more heightened. So if we ever open a newspaper, listen to the radio, watch some news on a screen, we are being startled, we are being aroused, the use of the word arousal in terms
not in a good way.
Not in a good way. So
I think bombarded is the word you're looking for.
Bombarded. Oh my God. I love that word, Donica. We are being bombarded. So let's say you and I are sitting in the living room together and I want to say something to you. I can protect our relationship by realizing I have no idea what's going on in Donica's head right now. I have no idea what thoughts she's being bombarded with. I have no idea what she was just looking at on her screen. I have no idea what she's getting prepared to handle. You know, like, are you handling your, what's it called? Paycheck protection program application today? Like, I don't know what's on your mind. So here's the first.
Well, I think for starters, one of the things is you may not know who I just heard died from coronavirus.
Oh
so
my God.
What I find is just by turning on Facebook, and I don't go on Facebook very often, especially intentionally now, but when I was on Facebook yesterday, I realized that every day I turn on Facebook, I learn that 3 to 4 of my friends just lost a family member. And under normal circumstances, these are funerals that I would have been going to.
Yeah.
And now there's no proper way to, grieve other than, or support your friends other than talking on the phone or on Zoom or sending a fruit basket.
It's so true. Yeah. So again, if you and I are in the living room together, I don't know that you were just on Facebook and you just saw that your friend's parent, let's say, died. And so I just blurt out something that's in my mind. I'm not giving you any kind of a buffer, and I may be startling you. I may be bombarding you even more. So here's my first tip, Donica, and that's for right now, but it's a fabulous tip for all of life. First, if I want to say something to you, I want to take a minute and get clear inside myself, what is it that I want to say? So, in kind of normal life, if I want to say something and someone's in the room with me, I might just say it. Mm-hmm. If I just read an article on, in the newspaper, I might just kind of look up and say, Donica, look at what the Senate did today. I just say it. So my first tip is think through, what is it that I want to say? And now I have a few things that I want to help you to organize in your mind before you say it out loud. So the first thing is be aware you want to say something and don't say it. Mm-hmm. So now think about, what is the one thing that you want to talk about with the person who's in your home with you? What is the one thing? Not the tremendous
A whole laundry list of all the things that you ever did in my whole life that
no
that
laundry
offended
list,
me.
no laundry list, no kitchen sink. Absolutely. We're not doing that. With what is the one thing? The second question to ask yourself is, how do I feel about it? Am I excited? Am I scared? Am I hurt? Am I angry? Get clear in yourself what that is. Now, here's the third thing to get clear about. What is it that you want to happen in a conversation about this? This is a really fabulous question for you to ask yourself before you say anything. So let me give you two or three very different examples. One thing that I might want to get out of telling you is I might just want to vent, and I just maybe want you to say something like, wow, that sounds hard, period. I might not want you to help solve it or give me opinions or give me advice or agree or disagree. I might just want you to listen to me, share my feelings. On the other extreme, I might want you to tell me what to do because I don't know what to do. And I might be appealing to you, please fix this for me. Those two things couldn't be more different. Or I might want another goal, like perhaps I want to say, oh my gosh, our friend's mother died. We've been invited to a Zoom funeral. Let's put it on our calendar. Let's not forget. I want to make sure you're aware of it. Please write it down. So those are three completely different goals that I have for getting out of what I want to get out of telling you this thing or talking to you about this. So again, what is the one thing I want to talk about? How do I feel about it? What do I want to get out of it? Now, when I'm clear with that, the fourth thing that I want for you to think through in your head is, what is something that you appreciate that went well with the person that you want to talk to at a similar time in the past? So Donica, let's say, I wanted to tell you something, and last week when you and I were on a call, I told you something and maybe you helped me fix it, and I want you to help me fix it today. So I want to think about a time I appreciated that you helped me fix a thing, just like I'm hoping you'll help me fix it today. Or a different time when we were talking and you were a great listener, and I want you to be a great listener today. So those are the four things that I want you to prepare. And if you can't see me, I'm pointing at my fingers. Four fingers, 1, 2, 3.
Is you started off by saying, recommending that people appreciate that they are not really sure what kind of headspace the person is in when they're beginning this conversation. So maybe there's actually a pre-step one.
No, I'm about to show you what you're talking about. There's a post step one. So all of this that I'm telling you about, this is what
this is all going on in your head.
This is only in your head. All these 4 steps are in your head. We have not approached the other person yet. And then we are on the verge of coming back to, I don't know what's going on in your head. So here's what I've done. I've zipped my mouth. I've thought, I want to say this to Donica, but let me get clear. What is the one thing? How do I feel about it? What do I want to get out of it? And what do I appreciate that happened before with Donica? Now that I'm clear, I have not said anything. Here's the next set of tips. Are you ready for those? Because it's totally going to answer your question. So I am going to find you in my home. So we're assuming that we're living together. I am not going to call to you from another room.
I hate that.
Right? How do you feel, Donica? How do you feel when someone just starts talking to you from another room?
My daughter does that to me all the time.
Yeah. Daughters.
Having a conversation from upstairs on the other side of the house.
Yeah.
And then
so how do you feel?
Just annoyed.
Annoyed. Donica, you feel annoyed. Do you want to feel annoyed as the introduction to any conversation?
No.
No. And neither do I.
And I feel summoned.
Yes. So you feel one down, you feel annoyed. This is not the way that if I'm going to talk to you, I want to take a leadership role and not make you feel annoyed or summoned. Mm-hmm. So my first set of 4 steps are in my head. Now, again, don't talk to someone when they're not in the room with you. If you want to talk to someone, you get up and you go and you find them and you look at them. What are they doing? So if I look at you and you're bent over your laptop and you're typing away like crazy and your brow is furrowed, I can see, I'm going to make a guess, you're working hard. Or whatever it is, if I walk in the room and your head does not look up and make eye contact with me, you're probably involved in something. So I'm going to assess really quickly, do I think I could get your attention? If I think there's a chance I can get your attention, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say your name. I'm not going to say, did you see what the Senate did? I'm going to say, Donica, and I'm going to look at you and I'm going to wait. And if I say, Donica, and I don't hear anything, I'm going to assume that you didn't hear me and you're not ready to talk. However, if I say, Donica, and you say,
I say, yes.
There we go. Then I'm going to say, do you have a second? So I think I want to encourage every single person listening to this podcast together to remember this for the rest of your lives. If you want to talk to somebody in your home, get up, go find them, look at them. Does it look like they might be receptive? If there's a chance, then you say their name. Hey, Donica. And if Donica says nothing, you wait, you say their name again. Maybe you go over and you tap them gently on the outside of the shoulder. But if I say, hey, Donica, and Donica says,
Sarah,
then I say,
yes.
Do you have a second? Okay, so this is the next place where I'm going to really honor you. If I say to you, do you have a second? You get to say no in a very nice way, or you get to say yes. So if you're in the middle of something, if you're preparing for your next podcast and you don't have another moment, this is what you could do. If I say, hey, Donica, do you have a second? You could say, you know what, Sarah, I would love to talk to you, but I can't right now. I'll be free in, and tell me, I'll be free in an hour and 10 minutes. How about that? Would that work?
Well, I think it's also saying, do you have a second is a little bit disingenuous because most conversations take more than a second. So sometimes if somebody says to me, do you have a minute? I may respond by saying, I have exactly 1 minute, or I have exactly perfect. 2 minutes, to indicate that if this is urgent and if this is emergent, and a lot of things that I deal with are emergent, then I can absolutely handle it. But if it's not at DEFCON 4, then we have to come back to it later. Also, the interesting point about when you're in the home and you do that, especially now that a lot of people are trying to work from home.
Oh, yeah.
So especially if you have adult children in the house and you have a spouse and you have yourself or a partner or a roommate and you're trying to work in the same space, most of us are also wearing AirPods. So they may literally not hear you.
They may literally not hear you. So again,
or they may be on a conference call and you're not hearing that they're on a conference call because they're just listening. Or in my case, I may be right at the really good part of my audiobook.
So again, be sure you're in the same room. Get up. If you walk in front of someone, if they don't raise their eyes and make eye contact, chances are they're quite involved. If I'm sitting there involved in something and someone comes in front of me, usually I'm going to raise my eyes and make eye contact with them. And that might be a chance for them to say my name, Sarah. But again, as I said, you can tap the person on the outside of their shoulder area, their upper arm, gently to get their attention. And watch them. Do they seem to be listening to their earphones or whatever? So you're absolutely right. So Donica, when I said, say, do you have a second? There's 2 different branches we're going to go, but you're absolutely right. That gives you the moment to say, the opportunity to say, well, I have 1 minute. What's up? Or yes, I do. Or not right now. How about later? But that lets you tell me that you care about me, but you don't have time. If I say, do you have a second? And you say, Sarah, I'd love to hear what you have to say. but I don't have a moment right now unless it's important.
Mhm.
So there are two different ways we can go. We can find a time that works for us together for a big conversation where it really only will be about a minute to discuss how to set up that time, or we can talk right now. So anyway, I've gotten your attention. You said yes. I said, do you have a second? Let's say you say, yeah, I have a minute or two. What's up? Now, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to start by telling you what I appreciate about you that I was thinking about in my head a few minutes ago. So I'm going to say, hey, Donica, remember that time when I called you because I was upset and I just needed you to listen? You were such a good listener. Well, right now, here's this thing that I'm upset about. And I would really love for you to just listen to me, share with you how I'm feeling. When is a good time that we could do this together? I'm thinking that, I could really use 10 or 15 minutes, and maybe you want to talk too. So when do we have a half an hour where we won't be interrupted and we won't be distracted? And then you and I will put our heads together real quickly. Maybe I'll come prepared with suggestion, like maybe after dinner or something like that. And we'll talk together real briefly. When is a good time we could have a conversation of this nature? Again, where we won't be interrupted or distracted, where our energy is good. We're not going to put this off to 5 minutes before bedtime. We're not going to schedule this 5 minutes before your next podcast.
Or 5 minutes
And
after bedtime.
oh my God, definitely do not do that.
So, I just want to interject with a public service announcement for everybody listening who feels the same way I do. This also is great phone etiquette. For regardless of what your relationship is with the person, but particularly if it's your significant other or your adult children who call you, to sort of signal, or I call it flagging up front. I think it's just good phone etiquette also always to say, have I gotten you at a good time?
Thank you, Donica. Thank you. Thank you. That is a public service announcement. And I'd like that to go out to all of my relatives who may or may not have been mentioned earlier in this call. And you know what I do?
And I do that.
Yeah. And a combination of phone these days, I will text my children and say, I want to talk. When are you free? Mm-hmm. And then I essentially make an appointment with my own children to talk to them on the phone. I start with that text, when's a good time, and they text back, how about, whenever. And then at that time I call them, and then I do say, is this a good time? So you're absolutely spot on, because remember, Donica, you said earlier you feel, what was it, annoyed and
summoned.
And summoned.
I'm still stuck on the thing. You really touched a nerve with this calling from the other part of the house thing. And this is also a public service announcement for, every mother who's had to deal with this. And I see this more in parent-child relationships, even with adult children, because of course they seem to always revert to their behavior from when they were 12 or 13. And we revert to treating them that way, which is not a good thing. But the being summoned, the problem is when you're called from another part of the house, back to your explanation about this fight or flight kind of sensation. If you're being called, if someone's yelling your name from the other side of the house, you immediately think, rightly so, that it's some kind of emergency. That it's some kind of problem, or I've fallen and I can't get up, or, the toilet's overflowing, or, some crisis. And it's when the question is, have you seen my blue sneakers? And you just dropped everything you were doing to,
and ran over. Yes.
So that's not appropriate. So I do find myself saying at least once a day, if you want to speak to me, please come to where I am.
Oh, Donica, I've never said that. I've never said that over and over again until I was blue in the face. Never. That's not me. I don't know what you're talking about.
If I'm on a call or if I'm on a podcast or, if I'm in the bathroom, whatever, I could be anywhere in the house.
So, but what that does speak to is there's a certain way in which there's an intimacy between the two of us, where if I want to say something, I assume you're ready to hear it. You're part of me. You're part of my community, my connection, my family. And so I read about the Senate and I just say, did you see what happened in the Senate today? Just assuming that you're sitting on the edge of your seat, just waiting to hear from me.
Right. And on the contrary, I may be feeling like I can't take one more thing that the Senate did today, because each day is at least one crisis. But the thing is, you just said something really important about, if you're important to me, then of course you want to hear what I have to say. And even among the 3 people in the world who are the most important people in the world to me, and I always want to hear what they have to say when it's meaningful and important, it may not rise to the level of my dropping everything that I need to do to find your blue sneakers.
Yes. Done.
Or, something similarly mundane.
Yes,
I just
yes, absolutely.
randomly out of a hat.
So,
or the honey, do you wear or the call from the kitchen? This is my favorite thing. And I have sometimes been accused in relationships of being a little sarcastic and snarky. And here's the number one reason why. Because when I get that call from the kitchen and I'm in another part of the house and it's, do you know where the butter is? Then I say, try the section in the refrigerator that says butter. Did you ever notice that? You know why that's there? It's because some snarky woman refrigerator designer said, I am sick and tired of being asked where the butter is, so I'm going to put butter right here.
Yes. Yep. That's pretty universal, I think.
And it could be transposed to so many other, different situations that, are not as ridiculously mundane as that, but, on that level.
Yeah. So if we are guarding our relationships and really wanting to let the people around us know how much we care about them, before you say whatever it is that you want to say, including where's the butter, stop and think about it, and think about the other person. What are they up to? And so this applies. You want to find out where the butter is, get up. Not only should you dig in the refrigerator, but if you truly need help, go find the other person, go in the room, look at them. Do they seem to be able to be interrupted? Say their name, ask if they have a second. Then you can say, sorry to intrude, but I can't find the butter. That's a whole different ball of wax.
Well, and if you go through all these steps that you're suggesting about the sort of thinking before you speak, what a novel concept. And I would have 0 problems in my life if I thought before I spoke. Certainly if I thought about 4 different things before I spoke. But if we did all that pre-thinking, I think it would eliminate a tremendous amount of conflict right there, especially in the mundane, where are the butter kind of irritation conversations, because maybe one of the things you would think about is, sort of what you were saying is about how did they react the last time I did this or the last time we were in this situation, or what did she say the last 4 times I asked her where the butter is, did you see my blue sneakers? I think then we could solve so many of those problems and avoid all those altercations and tensions and annoyances. And they seem very petty, but they build.
They build, and as you said, Donica, if every time you call to me from the kitchen when I'm 3 rooms away to shout, where's the butter? If I have this irritation reaction, this is pushing us farther and farther away from having calm, safe, connected, loving communication with each other. And that's the goal that I want to have between people, is always being aware, how can I lead to set up conversation between the two of us that's safe and calm.
I'm listening.
So I don't know if you want to go into another level, but so far what we've covered is, like you said, thinking before you speak. And the thinking before you speak asks yourself, what's the one thing I want to say? How do I feel about it? What do I want to get out of it? And what do I appreciate about the person from another time we had a similar conversation? Then the second set of things was go find the person you want to talk to, or, as you said, maybe text them. When's a good time to talk? Then say their name, get their attention, ask them if they have a moment, then let them know. You start with the thing you appreciate about them. Then you say, here's what I want to talk about and how I feel, and here's what I want to get out of it. Then you move to when is a good time. And the next thing that I hadn't included was where is a good place. So in our home, there are places where we tend to have a lot of conflict, and there are places that feel more cozy and safe and warm. Or there are, let's say, environmental tweaks we can make. So maybe in the brightly lit kitchen, we have conflict, but when we turn off the lights and put on, a candle and some low music and pour some tea, maybe we feel cozy and warm together.
I thought where you were going with the kitchen was, we may have conflict in the brightly lit kitchen, but magically, when you do the dishes and put them in the dishwasher and clean down the counters and take out the trash, then magically that's not such a place of conflict.
Well, that's another direction, and that would be true. That would be true. If you wanted to talk to me and you knew how much I loved it when you cleaned up after yourself and you did that, yes, that would calm my nervous system quite a bit. So this is all, as we said at the very outset, Donica, these are all tips that you can use for the rest of your lives. But right now, understanding how bombarded we feel, how we feel under siege, how just the act of going out of our front door and breathing feels dangerous. We want to go above and beyond to set up safety and calm in our own home, or, like you said, over the phone, to the best of our ability. So I don't know if you have the time to dive into another segment of how we actually talk to each other, but this setup that I've been talking to you about, I really think is so valuable, and it isn't that challenging, but it really keeps in mind that we don't know what's going on inside someone else, and chances are they're more stressed and tense and on edge than they ever have been before in their lives.
So talk for a minute about the unique factors in this time period that are sort of galvanizing and unifying to increase that stress. You talked about all of the things, the news stories we're being bombarded with, and the fear and the external pressures, but let's talk about within the living space. Yeah, certainly for starters, we're together more.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of kind of jokes about this online, but it's not funny. If we're used to a certain pattern, you go to your job, I go to my job, we have our own lives, we're in our own heads. We only intersect for, I don't know, let's say a half an hour in the morning and 3 hours in the evening. It's now all of a sudden we're here all the time. Or maybe I've always worked from home, but you always, you had your hour commute each way and your 8 hours in the middle. I had 10 hours without you, and now you're in my space. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it's for real stressful. Now, here's something that maybe we'll have enough time to talk about, but asking for what you need and being super clear with what is distressing to you is a little bit, it's not too hard to do, but there's some tricks to it. And so how do we let each other know, I love you, but actually having you in a space where I'm not used to having you is very, very hard. Or, let's say I used to be in an office and you would have your shift, but now you are out at the hospital, like 16 hours a day, and now I'm home all the time, and everything has flipped. I'm not used to being home all the time. You're not used to having such long hours, and we have these different expectations of each other. Another thing I've heard very commonly from a lot of people right now is the role switches. So I used to always be more or less responsible for cleaning the kitchen, and all of a sudden I'm out of the hospital all day long and you have to do the kitchen. And now are you criticizing the way I used to do it, or I'm criticizing the way you're doing it now? It's very stressful.
Yeah, and this concept of working from home is taken to very different degrees of seriousness, uh, depending on the individual and also depending on their occupation. So if we, take an extreme case of working from home, many physicians right now are doing telemedicine. So they're at
Yeah.
home and they're sitting at their laptops, at their desks, but they're seeing patients. So that's an example of something that just cannot be interrupted. And you can't put in a load of laundry or 3 loads of laundry and make dinner in between while you're, seeing telemedicine patients.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you're in a job that perhaps is more creative, or perhaps doesn't have deadlines or strict deadlines, or you've been writing a novel, or you're doing something where you really just need to check in on a few conference calls, and then otherwise your time is your own, that you may be able to do those kinds of things in between, if even though you're quote unquote working from home, or even taking the care of the kids who may not, in your case and mine, this doesn't apply to us, but there are many people who are listening who are also juggling in the midst of all this.
They're
Kids who
young
are
children.
normally at school, who are now home full time and need to be homeschooled.
So I want to jump in for a second, Donica, because what's really interesting, and I want to use this moment, is we can't make assumptions about another person's bandwidth or an attention based on what they're doing. So I may be assuming that since all you're doing, you're only writing a novel, you must have time to put in a load of laundry. I'm making that assumption based on the story that I'm telling myself in my head. If you're writing your novel, but this is finally the moment in which in your lifetime you have to write your novel, you may not have time to put in the laundry. And if I'm assuming that you are, we can have quite a bit of conflict.
Mhm.
Or the reverse, you're seeing telemedicine patients. I might assume you have no time, but actually maybe you schedule yourself an hour between patients and you'd be perfectly happy to put in the laundry if you knew that was something that we would want you to do as a team. So clarity of communication will take us a long way. If I become curious and I say, hey, Donica, you're home right now with your whatever it is, your novel writing or your website building, or dealing with our school age children. What is your bandwidth? Share with me, what is your attention span? What is your level of overwhelm in your head? What do you have the ability to take on and what don't you? So if I'm open and curious and I ask you, what's this like for you? And I listen to you without being critical. If you say to me, I have no time to put in the laundry, I don't want to jump in and say, of course you do. If you feel that you don't, I want to be a great partner and a great listener and say, wow, tell me more. What's it like to have this time, to be writing your novel or whatever it is, and to listen to you, and absolutely don't make assumptions about you.
So I could talk to you about this all day long, but we are getting to
Yes,
time. And I
yes, we
did
are.
promise people that you would explain to them about what all these different certifications are. So I want you to give me the elevator speech about what is a certified metabolic typing advisor, or a CMTA.
There's not enough time in an elevator to do this. We're going up to the top of a very tall building. So basically, metabolic typing is the principle that we have individual needs for nutrition, and we can't decide that we wish to eat one way or another way. And this is based on our history through time. So just a quick example: if you took an Inuit person who maybe eats a lot of seal meat and, fatty fish and fat and just a little bit, maybe they eat seaweed, do you in any way imagine they would be healthier if they ate big bowls of salad? Like, we can't imagine that. If you gave an Inuit person for generations, all they ate was seal meat and, some berries, and I think I'm going to do you a favor by telling you to eat salad, they would probably crash. It's probably not healthy. And you take someone who lives in the Amazon and they eat, I don't know what they eat, tubers and berries and fruits and leaves and, small little animal things. And we say, oh, let's give you all these huge seals and salmon, you're going to love it. No, they're going to crash. So metabolic typing is the process of figuring out what is truly the best food for your individual unique biochemistry. And I think it was last night, my daughter and I were talking about, I thrive on red meat and vegetables like broccoli. She thrives on salad and chicken. And Donica, in quarantine, I've been avoiding the supermarket. I've only been to my natural market 3 times in, I think, the 6 weeks or so we've been quarantined. So I've been eating very small amounts of meat, and I'm getting more and more irritable. I went to the store 2 days ago and I came home and barbecued meat, and I was like walking on air. So we're all different, and metabolic typing is about, in order to be your healthiest, you have to eat what's best for your unique body. If I decided to be a vegetarian, I would crash. If my daughter decided to go heavy on steaks, she would crash. So that's what that is.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, next one. What is a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, or an FDNP?
Yes, well, that terminology is a tiny bit outdated, but functional diagnostic nutrition is, again, looking very much at unique biochemical individuality of a person, looking functionally at how does our body function. It's not a disease or an illness model, but are my hormones optimal for me? How's my gut? How is my digestion? How's my skin? Are all these things working optimally for me? And opening up the door to do detective work. So if I, for example, have a rash, I'm not going to put a cream on it, but I'm going to find out, is my gut microbiome so out of whack that toxins are coming out through my skin? Do I maybe have a parasitic infection? Are my hormones out of balance? How am I sleeping? And that are very delicate, interconnected physiological systems. Everything influences everything else. And Donica, I did that kind of work actively for a while, and now I've returned wholeheartedly to couples therapy, but my eyes and ears are so much more open now. So, let's say I hear about a couple, their sex life is really in the toilet. I'm not only going to come at it from a couple's perspective, like, are they sharing their feelings openly, but what's the quality of their sleep? What's the quality of their nutrition? If they are getting 3 hours of sleep a night and they're eating Twinkies, how can they possibly build the balance of hormones and the excess of energy that to have a healthy libido and to have arousal? So, it's really broadened my understanding that all parts of ourselves and our relationships are interconnected with everything. And we can bring in, the coronavirus. If I'm irritable all day long because of what's going on, and then you want to make love with me, I'm going to be like, are you kidding? I'm not in the mood for sex.
Did you wash your hands first?
Did you wash your hands? And I thought I saw you out there talking to the neighbor, and you were 6 feet apart. Like, we're not talking.
It's funny. I will tell you, I will just share one personal anecdote. I am actually sequestering separately from my partner
Oh,
because he is working in an essential job and he's exposed to lots of people, and everyone else here is sheltering in place and we're not exposed to people. So
yeah.
we felt it was risky. And the way this began is we had what I call the infidelity conversation of 2020, where he told me that there was a woman at his workplace who was COVID positive. And he said, but I
Oh,
swear I had nothing to do with her. I don't know this woman. We never even had a conversation. I don't even know her name. And I was like,
that's so
honey,
funny.
this sounds very defensive.
That's so funny.
Anyway, so I
Yes.
understand you're on the brink of a new career approach. So tell us what's next for you professionally.
So, Danica, I have been doing couples therapy pretty much for 30 years, and I love doing couples therapy, but I have a private practice just north of Seattle. Very few available slots in a week. And the further along I went in my career in couples therapy and really helping couples more and more, I realized it is important for me to serve as many people as I can by creating online programs that are not therapy. I'm not talking about telemedicine, but there's so many couples that are motivated and ready and eager to work together to get closer, and they need expert informed guidance for how to build a really connected relationship, how to rekindle their connection between the two of them. So, funny or not, I was on the verge of launching my very first round of my flagship program, Relationship Mastery. This was in March. And you know, I had all my webinars circled on the calendar. I was getting everything ready to go, and COVID hits, and I'm like, nope. People are not just relaxedly looking at each other and saying, honey, it's time that we, dedicate to our relationship. So that is on hold right now.
Although now
But
people may have some more time, and we're certainly
yes,
doing everything online now. So we figured that
yes.
out. One of the
So I think once we got over that initial, like, oh my God, how do we wash our hands? How do we make masks? That I'm thinking about when is the right time to launch. But in the moment, now what I'm doing is, interviews like with you, and working on small targeted workshops and webinars and live videos for how to help couples everywhere negotiate all the small pieces of their relationships. So that is what I'm really dedicated towards, and I'm going to be building this over the next few years.
Well, we are excited to see what you build and what you come up with. Thank you so much for all the tips you've given us just today. And I think I'm going to focus on my mantra about this thinking before you speak thing.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
But before I let you go, you must tell us, because I ask everybody, what your most unique, interesting, memorable, or different experience was that you ever had in a ladies' room, aside from this interview.
Yes. I
You must have some experience that jumps to mind.
Well, I have to say, most of my life, since I'm in private practice and I'm home, the ladies' room is just a single person bathroom. Thank you so very much. So I don't really have anything entertaining that jumps to mind. I do remember back in college, a friend of mine knew which stall I liked the best. And I do remember for my birthday one day, I went into my favorite stall in the morning, and there was written on toilet paper, no one would use it up now, a birthday message hanging on the inside door of my favorite
Aw,
stall.
that's a
So
good
that,
story.
yeah, that person knew me so well, she knew which toilet I used.
So that's a good story, and it's certainly one we haven't heard before. So
Okay,
yeah, I'm adding to
good.
this collection, and someday we'll have an In the Ladies Room book where I'll share all our ladies' room stories that we've all told and we've all been so fond
Fun.
of. But thank you so much for joining us and for giving us some tips and help for dealing with COVID communications with couples and with
Yeah.
other people. And this is obviously a huge topic, and I know your online offerings are going to bring so much help and clarity to people who are really kind of starving for, this like transformative moment of,
Yeah.
how can we just speak to each other in a way that's fulfilling,
Yeah. And kind,
and loving,
yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
loving.
So
And
I have a free gift for your
oh,
community.
is it chocolate?
So no, sadly, it is not chocolate, but you could eat chocolate while you are consuming it. So at my website, couplescommunicationinstitute.com, I have a free quiz that you can take to see how is your communication in your relationship. And at the end of that quiz, you will get a handout, a free PDF guide that goes through the 2 sets of tips that we went through today on this interview, and a 3rd set of tips for actually having the conversation. So we didn't even get to the having the conversation. All we
But we're
got
going to have to have you
today.
back then.
Perfect.
All right. So
So
institution.com.
not institution,
Oh,
institute.
Institute.
Couples
I think
Communication
I was combining
Institute.
institute with intuition. Couplescommunicationinstitute.com.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going, and I'm going to take the quiz.
Good. And depending on when this interview goes live, you might have to go to the page called Crisis Quiz, or it may be up on my homepage. So it depends on how many hours later it is that you're hearing this. So Donica, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you so much. Stay well.
You too, Donica.
That's all we have time for today. But let's keep the conversation going on Twitter or Facebook at Dr. Donica. And please join us next week for another episode of In the Ladies' Room with Dr. Donica. Real conversations with real women about really intimate topics.